great. So thanks again. Thanks for RSVPing and thanks for coming. All right. I'm not going to wait much longer. We are pressed for time. We're doing a quick half-hour lunch session, so I do hope that all of you have gotten your vouchers. We made a recent change. We had used Uber Eats in the past, but weren't too happy with their technical management of the platform, and we had some issues. And we didn't want to be offering you guys lunch and then not allowing you to redeem through the platform. So we've gone over to Mr. D. Mr. Delivery. So let us know if there are any issues. Reach out to Mel and her team and let us know if you have any problems with it. But just to summarize these events, we've had a number of them now. Mel, how many of these have we had and how often?
We've had about 15 of them, and monthly. Yeah, and what's really, really great about them is that when we started doing them about 2 years ago, the RSVPs weren't coming in, like they were coming in, but it wasn't as many as it is now, where we send out the invite and within an hour we already reach 50% of our targeted attendees, because we do have a target of how many attendees we want. So it's been a really great success.
Yeah, really great. So thanks very much, and I hope you guys are enjoying them. If you haven't been to one yet, or if you already have, you'll know what to expect. And we started this last year, and obviously the idea was with people working remotely, we wanted to be able to talk about products a little bit in a relatively informal setting, and get people to do it from wherever they were. And it's really proved to be so popular that we're just continuing with it. So that's me and Justin. I'm the Chief Services Officer here at Torito. If you haven't met me yet, I look forward to meeting you. Most of the things technical and service delivery fall under me, so I'm the guy to shout at if the other people aren't answering their phones or not keeping you happy. And Justin is our product specialist here. He'll be running the rest. He'll be running the slide deck and taking us through some things. And then importantly, this session is technical in nature. Most of you attending are IT managers. And just a very little bit about us as Torito, if you don't know us. I think a lot of you do, but some of you don't. The reason we exist as an organization is we're sort of a niche provider that sits between IT departments and all of the services and suppliers out there that you can use and rely on to run your departments effectively. And we just find through a couple of hundred customers that they get tired of being ignored by large providers, and they need an extra degree of service. And also importantly, if it's a cloud backup solution, if it's connectivity, if it's a firewall, whatever it may be, those products are always changing. The service levels that you'll receive are always changing, and we like to be plugged into that entire industry, and we always kind of have our finger on the pulse, and we're aware of what's the best. So what we do with these sessions is it's not a sales session. We like to keep it technical. We just want to show you guys products, show you what's out there and the capability of those solutions. And then, you make your own decision and come back and talk to us if you need specialists in the room to talk to further. So that's really what this is about. And with that being said, Justin, let me hand over to you.
Brilliant. Thanks very much for the intros there, Aaron. Hi, everyone. Thanks for making the time to join us for another Lunch and Learn session. Very quickly, my name is Justin Parker. I'm a product specialist here at Red Store. In terms of the agenda today, it's not going to be an information overload or product dump, but rather a high-level overview of products and services that you can use in your data management strategies. I'll then hand over to Rian, who's our head of technical. He's going to take you through a bit of a demo of the look and feel, the ease and simplicity of the solution that might be able to assist you in your data management strategy. So with the session, we're going to try something a little bit different. Instead of fear-mongering and giving you information about the latest malware trends in terms of companies that have been attacked, the amount of crypto or dollars that they had to pay to get their data back, or the amount of time that they were locked out of their environments. We'd more like to focus on technologies that can support you in both your cloud migration strategy as well as your risk mitigation on those various platforms. So what we've seen sometimes is the biggest threat to IT departments isn't necessarily the latest malware threat, but it's rather the false sense of security that IT departments rely on when dealing with global platforms or providers, as well as not being aware of all your options available to you when it comes to your various systems in place. So case in point, we rolled back a couple of months. It was a Saturday afternoon where we did a family braai. I'm sitting with my brother-in-law. He happens to be the global head of IT for a big mining company. So we get onto the interesting topic of work and what he's seeing in the industry and the space and so on. And he tells me that they've actually just gone through a full-on M365 deployment for all their various regions, just to get everyone collaborating and communicating. And they're actually in the process of migrating their on-site servers through to the Azure environment. So while he was burning the stakes, I was asking him questions around, does he have a backup solution? What does he have in place? Has he looked at this? Needless to say, he didn't give me the information I was looking for, so I decided to leave it at that with him there, leave him to burn the meat for everyone. So roll back a few weeks, and we start getting these notifications on Twitter, on Tech Central, all IT-focused platforms that Microsoft's down. So after a couple of hours, it turns out that there was some sort of IP config on their WAN side. So all customers with using Microsoft or in Azure were unable to access their environments. Putting your faith in a global provider, but something small doesn't even happen to be malware, but you're still locked out of your environment and you're unable to work. So perhaps, like I said earlier, what I'd like to talk about is looking at these platforms, but also seriously considering underlying technologies that can support you in your cloud migration strategy and your platform selection, just to ensure a bulletproof strategy for you going forward. So firstly, M365, it's a solid platform, bulletproof. It's really great in terms of companies that have regional or international offices. Fantastic for calls, keeping business units together and communicating, but it's also good for companies that have clients around the world. We don't want to have to fly somewhere to meet with them, just to keep in touch. So like I said, it's a solid foundation, and you see it being deployed more so after COVID than pre-COVID, and it's sort of stuck. Companies, even if they've gone back to the office, are still making use of M365. So there's a huge but when it comes to M365, or a misconception with M365. That just because it's with Microsoft, your data is safe. So with M365, in the event that there's an employee that deletes a file or folder, I think you've got something like 90 days to become aware of that, and also to be able to restore that file or folder. Post that point, if you don't have any third-party solution in place, that file or folder is as good as gone. So from a metaphor point of view, you can imagine an apartment block, and every single business that's on Microsoft has an apartment in there. So you as a company, you're going to fill that with your couches, your TVs, your fridges, and so on. You're going to furnish it. They provide the brick and mortar, but you provide the contents. In the event of lightning, flooding, Microsoft aren't going to be there to replace your couch or your TV. That's with a third-party backup provider. You say your couch was damaged, the third party is going to bring you a brand new couch, the exact same couch that you had, or its last copy of that couch. So another point to look at within Microsoft is in their T's and C's, they state that they strongly suggest the use of third-party backup providers, regardless of what platform within Microsoft you're using. If you're locking something away in a safe, you're not going to leave the key in the safe, leaving all your eggs in one basket. We saw with my brother-in-law, he had I don't want to say arrogance, but he had the confidence that he was moving to Microsoft and everything would be fine. But yeah, I think there was a lot of panic running around. They just signed up for a brand new next-gen cloud solution, and it let them down as a company for 8 hours. And from a global mining point of view, I don't even want to try and quantify what that cost them in terms of productivity. So onto the next product that we've developed is our Azure VM. So this allows users the ability to move data between various environments simply and with ease. So 3 clicks and a password, and you're able to migrate VMs to the cloud, and from the cloud onto VMs. So you could have a VM sitting on site, or you could have some sort of environment within Azure. You select the data that you want to move around, 3 clicks and a password, and you're able to migrate that off the Azure cloud or off your local VM into the cloud. It makes data migration that much easier. Another advantage to support you with your cloud migration strategy, if you're considering the likes of an Azure, is there's no egress fees associated with the service. So technically speaking, you could run countless DR type scenarios throughout the month, moving data from VMs to the cloud back and forth, just to ensure that you've got some sort of failover scenario, and you won't get any surprises on the invoice later in the month. So as I mentioned before, it ensures that you've got a robust DR solution without having to pay for that DR type environment. There's 0 egress fees, so your CFO would be pretty happy with that invoice. Another thing to look at is you're avoiding vendor lock-in, whereby your data is stuck with one provider. You're able to move that protected data off one cloud provider and into another. Another great aspect to look at is that your environment will be protected in under 60 seconds. So mentioned earlier, 3 clicks and a password. You select the files and folders you want kept, and our agentless system gets backing up immediately. So gone are the days of waiting. You can get protected in near 0 time. Some overarching features that we've developed in-house just to protect your data that much further is the AI-driven malware detection. So this would be seen as a technology that, as a further barrier over and above your firewall, it's over and above your antivirus, but this sits on the data end. Most of the ransomware attacks happen on the data. Once they encrypt your data, they've pretty much got you. You need to pay them that crypto or that $1 million based ransom, and then they might, release give you the key so you can access your data. But they can also do a double extortion where you've paid them, they give you a key, but now they threaten that they're going to release your data to the public. So what we've done is with our AI detection is we create a sandbox environment for any files or folders that are deemed suspicious. So what we've got on our end is a system that can actually categorize whether it's ransomware, whether it's a Trojan, what type of virus is it. We can see from this example on the screen that we found 74 files. And what it also does is once you start drilling into it, it deep dives the severity. So it gives you a probability of it being a Trojan. It gives you more control as to what's being kept within your data estate. So you can see that, okay, I've got a file that's 88% it's a Trojan. Do I have the option to revert it back to a safe version? Should I delete it? Or should I mark it as safe? Is it part of my general business day-to-day activity? The instant data functionality forms part of both the M365 and the VM Pro offering that we've got. What this allows is, generally speaking, in the market with a third-party backup, if you need to do some sort of emergency restore, you're going to have to recover that entire environment, and you're going to have to wait until every single file and folder has been partitioned correctly in order for you to access anything. So the brains behind Redstore decided early on that wasn't, excuse me, that wasn't the best way of doing things. People, when they're doing a restore, they need to be able to work. So what we've done is we've created a hierarchy which would allow a person to select the files and folders that they need right now. Those are basically prioritized and they send to the right people. So you could have the restore happening in the back end, but you've got the right files that you need right now to carry on working. It's near immediate. It takes less than 5 minutes to perform an instant data backup or restore, so that you as the IT team, you don't have to worry about whether it's 1 terabyte or 100 terabytes. To fully recover, you can get the company working immediately in a near crisis event. So then on my last point, data tagging with GDPR and POPI compliance. What sits in your data? Who knows? There's no real way to see who's got access to what. So what we've done is we've built in-house data tagging, where it gives you a level of insight into who's got access to what data and where that data sits. So we can see from this screenshot here that it's identified 44 sensitive files that have been tagged in home. But this interface allows you to see what data sits where and who's got access to it. pretty crucial for companies that don't necessarily want reception, having insight into customer banking details, cell phone numbers, very sensitive information. So what we do is we tag the data on our end, we create the reports, and then it gives you, as the IT manager, the insight, like, do I want most of my critical data sitting on a machine that's about to fall over? It's almost end of life, there's high risk here. So let's move that data off that machine. There's highly sensitive data there. Let's put it onto something a bit more updated and a bit more secure. So that's it. Hope you guys didn't see it as a product dump and rather more informative than anything else. I'm going to hand over to Rian, who will take us through the interface on M365 as well as the Azure VM.
Thanks, Justin. And Rian, before you get started, and Justin, just leave that data tagging slide up for a second. Again, a lot of the room here are IT professionals, IT managers in particular, and what we've found, especially lately, I mean, in the last 6 months, you guys are needing to report on where your costs are lying, and that's becoming more and more difficult to do as there's a degree of complexity and as we move to sort of subscription-based services. So we see Excos pushing back, we see boards pushing back. This kind of data analytics is very important because you're able to say, the engineering department is taking up 40% of our backup space because they're taking videos on mining sites and those take up a huge amount of space. Perfectly necessary, and the engineering team will say, yes, that's us, but that carries with it a cost. And that's up for them to decide. So instead of IT being whipped by the finance manager because they're spending too much money, with the right analytics, you're able to say, it's not me, it's the engineering department, or speak to sales, or speak to this department. Without that information, without knowing what's taking up all the space, you're not able to sort of defend yourself. So I've just seen that work quite well. So good to know. Thanks. Rian, over to you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Justin. All right, perfect. I'm going to start sharing my screen. So what you guys should see in just a couple of seconds is the Red Store dashboard. Give that a few seconds to load. I see a lot of people nodding. The demo gods are on my side today. All right, so Red Store, obviously data protection, cloud first. So we protect customers' data between clouds. We protect on-prem infrastructure. We protect quite a bit. Obviously focusing on cloud-based information today, but I mean, we protect Kubernetes services in AWS, Azure Blob Storage, Azure containerized services, so also Kubernetes, Google Workspace 365, Salesforce Zero, recently launched QuickBooks Online. And the only reason that I mention all of these various platforms that we protect is really we aggregate the data and we protect it into geographically redundant locations. Now, Justin's talked about two specific points, really: suspicious files, or what we call AI malware, and sensitive file tagging. Now, both of these actions happen in the cloud, so there's no requirement for an IT team to provision any storage, any servers. So there's really very little from an admin perspective other than the analytics that we provide to the customer. As Justin's already mentioned, the AI malware scanning happens at the time of backup, which makes us a little bit different to other providers. So instead of finding at the time of recovery that your data may be corrupted, it may have fallen prey to a zero-day ransomware attack, it's been sitting in backup for the last 3 years. Obviously, at the time of backup, the last thing you want to find out is that data is not usable. Now, we will obviously scan all the data. We will continually update our signatures. We will give you a probability scoring saying we believe that there is a 57% chance that we've detected a Trojan in this data set. Now, you'll notice that this is for machines. This could be 365 data. This could be Google Workspace data. It's across the board. So really giving you good insight into where this data is being kept, but also quarantining this data from being released back into your customers' environments. So really the last line of defense. Your firewall may have failed to detect it. Your antivirus or anti-malware service hasn't detected this. Red Store is then at the time of recovery, making sure that you're not placing your customer back in the compromised position they were before the actual malware attack. So really that is what this is around specifically. Now, sensitive files, really data tagging. What this is doing, detecting sensitive information. Now, sensitive information, depending on where you are in the world, may be a different thing altogether. POPI, GDPR, HIPAA, depending on the geography you find yourself in. More generally, it is personally identifiable, sensitive information, so ID numbers, social security information, credit card information, anything that could be deemed potentially compromisable. That's what we're looking for in sensitive files, and really telling you where this data is being kept. with the cloud sprawl that we see in our customers. Obviously, we're moving data into Azure, we're moving data into OneDrive, SharePoint, Teams, all of this data is all over the place. How do I, as an IT manager, know where this data is actually being stored? A good example, the receptionist, as Justin has mentioned, drags a file with credit card information onto her desktop. That's being backed up using Redstore. We can tell you that they're keeping this information in an offline copy or even in their OneDrive if that's being obviously synced to the desktop. So that's a good general overview of what it is that we do. Now for 365 specifically, we protect Exchange, OneDrive, SharePoint, and Teams. We do so by direct integration with the Microsoft Graph APIs. We protect mail contacts and calendars inside Exchange. You're able to recover these either back to 365. So you always have two recovery options. Firstly, you can recover to 365 as single items, full mailboxes, or you can do a PST export. You also notice really recently released functionality where we do multiple daily backups. So you can back up the tenant when you want. You can also do multiple backups at different times for different products. So you could do 3 backups for OneDrive, 3 for SharePoint, and do them all at different times of the day. So we protect all of the data sitting inside the 365 environment, while we consolidate the actual backup view with your on-prem servers, with your Azure infrastructure, etc. So when it comes to Azure VM, we'll look at that in a little bit of detail. I'm not going to dive in too deep, but really that is protecting the data from the Azure cloud to the Redstore cloud seamlessly. So there's no agent required. There's no egress fees from Azure to Redstore. And then when you have that on-prem infrastructure piece, that's really an agent. So we install an agent on a protected workload, and then we are able to restore that into Azure, migrate using what we call our Azure mobility piece. So there is obviously no cost, there's no throttling. We restore at the full bandwidth of your customer. But I will show you what instant data permanent file recovery does, because a lot of value is added in the time to recover just through instant data. But in essence, just back to 365 here. Obviously, all the data source is protected. I can recover to various points in time. So I can find my backup date, restore from there, or obviously browse the backup and find the data that I want to restore. And when it comes to instant data, we have 2 instant data recovery methods. The first one is temporary file access, which very simply means that we'll mount a drive to your machine with all of the recovery points that we keep in retention. You'll be able to browse those, find the file that you need to restore, or just access it in the time of a service outage. A good example is I need a spreadsheet that's on my OneDrive. Again, 365 may have had a service interruption. I can't get to the data that I need for whatever period of time. I just need access, and for that, we will use temporary file access with Redstore. Now, again, this is across the product set. So this could be for an Azure VM where I need data from the Azure VM. I need to get that back on-prem for whatever reason from 365, Google Workspace, doesn't really matter. So I can browse the data set, access the data set, and then obviously we can't make changes to the Redstore backend because it is immutable, but I can at least have access to the data that I need when I need it. The second part to instant data is permanent file recovery. Really very powerful when we talk about servers, Azure infrastructure, large data sets where I need to perform a large data set recovery instantly. And we do mean instant, because what that means is I could, in this case, drag and drop the entire OneDrive, which in this case, you'll see I don't even have enough disk space to perform the recovery. But let's find just a quick user share, drag and drop this. So what this does, it streams from the Redstore platform down to my local machine. It will make all of the data available on demand, which means that I can immediately start accessing and using the data as if it were local. So this would be applicable for something like a file server, where I need to restore 10 terabytes of cloud storage immediately. I don't want to wait. I will use instant data permanent file recovery, and it's instantly accessible. Where this is applicable, OneDrive, SharePoint, when you've migrated those on-prem file servers into a SharePoint environment, I need access to the data, or I may even need to migrate out of SharePoint back on-prem for whatever reason. I can do that instantly through instant data. So those really give you data portability, but also data access in the time of a DR event. Now, as I mentioned before, this is 365, but we are cloud focused. So I'm just going to go back here into my dashboard, into my internal company space, and browse into Azure. Now you'll notice that we protect blob storage, Kubernetes, and virtual machines. Really importantly, when it comes to all 3 of these, but specifically on Azure VM, you have the option to protect the Azure VM only as snapshots inside Azure, basically taking snapshots of the Azure VM, keep it in the dashboard view for recoverability. So I can restore an Azure VM, to the same VM, so I can overwrite the existing. So I can just go in here, click recover on one of my recovery points once this loads, and then I can recover to the current VM, to a new VM using the same configuration as the backup configuration, or again, I can recover using instant data if I need to recover that data outside of Azure. So again, that portability piece, but I guess in reverse, if you're taking a machine from Azure to on-prem. Now, again, no egress fees. You'll notice here a tick box that says enable Redstore Protect. If this is enabled, Redstore will keep 2 copies of the Azure data in our data centers in the case a recovery is required. Now, I don't want to dig into too much detail. Obviously, reach out to Torito. We are here to help you. And with that, I'm going to hand it back over, I guess, to Justin.
Thanks very much, Rian. I don't know if it's necessary for us to share the slide deck, but we go to a Q&A session. So I'm going to open the floor up to the guests. See if there's any questions or queries. Please fire them through. We've got the head of technical on the call, so don't hold back.
A couple of people from Torito here too, and if you don't want to pose your question, you're welcome to type it into the chat as well. Hopefully everyone's eating lunch. I just need to know. That is the idea.
Mal, is that the Q&A selection here in Teams?
So you
That's
can-
where they can ask.
You can use the chat or the Q&A. They're both there, but no one's used the Q&A yet, so feel free to use the chat. We do have some questions that were submitted when people RSVP'd that I'm happy to shoot through. So one of them you actually answered was that they're currently using Redstore and they want to understand if it backs up SharePoint. You showed that in that demo. And another one is, how does Redstore compare to competitors considering cost, functionality, and security? And I know you all have Redstore has amazing battle cards for different competitors that we can share. So I just urge people to get in touch and then we can have a more in-depth conversation. I don't know if there's anything that you want to add to that, Justin?
I think it would come down to, competitor specific, because where we beat the one, we might lose to the other. So it's difficult. We don't have that magical elixir that trumps them all, but it all comes down to which competitor we're going against.
Agree. And then Michael just asked if a recording will be available. Yes, it will. We will send it to you via email with a link. And then one of the other questions that came from the RSVPs, and I think this is referring to geographically, where is the data kept?
I think Rian might be best to answer this one.
Happy to answer that. So whenever we talk about cloud data specifically, there are really two questions: data processing and then data storage. When it comes to both of those, it will always be in region. And when I say in region, Redstore is a global organization. So we have data centers in the US, the UK, France, Germany, South Africa, all over the show. But the most important part to that is when we talk about Azure data, it is both processed and stored in the geographic region of origin. So there's no egress fees for the customer and all laws are complied to, no matter the geography.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Good answer, Rian. It doesn't seem like any more questions are coming through, but if anyone does think of something after they finished off their pizza or burgers, please feel free to reach out to your account manager at Torito. We'll be happy to help in answering that or even setting up a session with you guys so we can unpack it further.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say the same. And sorry, guys, I'm having some technical glitches. So I think the demo gods attacked me, Rian. You escaped, but they got to me. But yeah, thanks everyone. We're bang on time. It's 12:30, and we only wanted to take half an hour of your time today. So thank you very much for attending. I hope lunch was good. I hope you guys learned something. And as Justin just said, anything else you need to know, please reach out to us. I see one of you did want to know if we've recorded it, and we have. So that's available as well. Just reach out to the team. Okay, thanks everyone. Have a great day. Happy Thursday, and good luck to the Springboks this weekend.
Thank you, everybody. Awesome.
Guys.
Guys.
Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.